pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you guys have a chance to look at the minutes?
Motion. Yes, sir. And I will second his motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have minutes. How about any reports?
Oh, I got reports.
Let's wait.
Well, I can hit briefly. I'm sure you guys saw from Kathleen Van Steenhouse. Did you see that, Gary? Okay. Yeah, so I think she's one that we appoint. Is that correct? So
First of the year, so we
we're
need to
gonna have
be
to
thinking
be looking, thinking.
It'll be hard to choose, so.
Oh, very hard. Yes, she's been and very dedicated.
You could tell her, she was there.
Uh-huh. So, but, yep.
ready to enjoy retirement.
It sounds like they're gonna,
Winter.
yeah, winter in Florida. So, I don't understand why people would want to do that.
Gary, you got any report for him?
I'll say the word, we're waiting for security, and go in. Yeah, we usually call it.
We were down the street of the meet.
Pardon?
He was waiting down the street.
We met last Wednesday.
Regional mental health.
Yeah. There's a couple members leaving. We didn't really have much going on. Normal stuff, so.
I'll circle back to a couple of.
I guess.
Sure.
Wes, we'll go ahead and take you. What do you got?
So, with our recent hire to our department, we just want to move some money from our part-time and temporary wages into our full-time salaries. That way the money is coming out of the correct line item for the future. I'm looking at moving around $29,000 out of my seasonal. Currently I have $46,920 inside that item or that line, and have $36,149.02 in the full-time. Just wanting to make sure that that his salary is coming out of the correct position in my budget. And then next year I'll make sure that we have all the money for both salaries in my budget. That way they both get the correct amount.
You're just gonna take the 29,000 out of the part-time?
Yes.
You're not gonna clean it out?
No.
'Cause you're gonna need to hire somebody in the spring, right?
Yep.
You're only planning on hiring one.
Right. Yep. And my plan is to get both my full-time employees, their CDLs, and then end up hiring a part-time to get their spray license and then spray for us.
So are you talking the 7140, the 100,
So,
or the 101,935 and the 100,933? Those two line items?
yeah.
Those are both service area 7. And then, once we move those around, I was gonna look at his withholdings and make sure he's got enough in those.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we still might have to.
That'll be different right now.
Yeah, because if you have to leave enough cushion in the
Mhm.
seasonal for others, we still have to
And
take
while,
into account for the withholdings, so.
while you're at it, we did that change his insurance too on the group.
Well, depending on if you guys take insurance.
That, I don't know, so
Okay.
I have a meeting with Kirsten after this, I'll go.
Okay. Because I might have to tweak his resolution according to what he finds out if we can. So you might wanna think if there's any other
Okay,
line items that you have cushioned, because we might need to cushion the other ones too.
okay,
Well, why don't we do this way? You gotta do, both of you guys gotta do some investigating. What you're
Well,
gonna
yeah,
do.
he's gonna let me know.
Yes, so instead of, I'm gonna give you a nod, go ahead and go for it,
okay,
understand, but get everything lined up, you know what the dollar amount is,
okay,
so we don't have to keep.
Well, and then if you would wanna wait, we can, I mean, so that
Yeah.
resolution, it'll be in the minutes for next week.
Yeah.
And then I can work out the
You
details.
wanna do it that way?
That's fine. Cause as long as I know the line items, what we're taking and cushioning from, then I'll type it up in this resolution for you guys to approve in a minute.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve his moving funds around inside his department.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Abstain.
And that was my resolution.
Yes. Your name?
Aye.
Okay, Seaman, aye.
then would you like to set up a meeting so we can,
Or if you guys want to, and Kristen are done, just give me the salary amounts, and then I'll take it times those withholding amount, or Kristen should not do that too.
okay,
And then look through the insurance line items.
okay,
And what I'll need is what line items that we're tweaking, because that's how I do my journal.
alright. That sounds good, thank you,
You want?
see ya, thank you.
We got about 8 minutes.
Talk a little bit on the budget stuff.
Okay.
I've been talking with some other counties too. You know, it's a busy time of year when everybody starts coming with their requests. I know we have somebody on the agenda next week already. Some counties use a form from the board and they mail it out to those entities. That way we tell them that they get their request to you guys by a certain set date. And then what they can, I'll show you the form. If they can fill out the form accordingly, you know, sometimes we don't know where that allocation goes. And then they can give us more detail, what their goals are, what they're gonna be using the funds for. And then we send them back something, whether they're yes or no type of thing. I don't know. And that way we kind of have a paper trail too. I don't know, what are your thoughts on some of that?
Report.
Why not?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, we have like the Riverview Center go, we didn't tell them yes or no. Did they get their funding or not, type stuff. That way, when we put the budget packets together, you guys can go forward. Be a little more transparent, yes or no, if they're gonna get it or not.
That helps those departments obviously then.
Yeah, and then maybe some of them, if they don't wanna come in person, I mean, some of them obviously will still come,
Right.
but at least we kinda have an idea what we're putting in and not putting in. Just wanted your thoughts before I send out letters on your behalf.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But I still hope that they do show up and give us what they're happening in the past.
It's nice to get a
Update.
update review of what's going on, so.
Yeah.
I'll send you guys the forms, and if you wanna make any notes or.
Sure.
There's a couple different examples I've looked into, so. You know, with the conflict meetings.
If it's okay with you, sir, let me hit on, had a couple other meetings there under reports, but, one is workforce development. And that's a whole new ballgame for me. You know, that's fine. And then, the important one, in my opinion, to report on here today is the Heartland Insurance Risk Pool. This is, it gave us list of our updated building values. And, so you need to look those over. And it also has the replacement cost. We had somebody come around and, value them. And so you can see in some of these that, according to replacement costs and what we have scheduled on values, some of them are pretty upside down. So that's kind of where it's at. So,
And when do we have to have that back to by if we want to up anymore?
well, I think this is
Set for now.
set for now.
But for
I
the
think
future, we would
for
probably have
next
to up
year.
some of those.
Yeah, because you get down into some of these, a tower building, 472,000, we have it for 100.
Yeah,
Oops,
well, and after the new project for sure.
exactly, and the communications tower, Dan Horn, we have down to 0?
See, I don't know if the sheriff department carries something or the EMA.
No,
or-
we're all.
Well, this is all
This is all
with
of
it,
It's
yeah,
all,
yeah,
Probably-
it's,
Never got submitted when Ron did those other ones or whoever.
yeah, and so this is some stuff we need to look at, and I'm sure if we had to, for example, that Van Horn Tower, where it's down as a 0, and it's got a replacement cost of 472,000, I'm sure we could get that added.
We've had lightning strikes on a few that we collected on too, so.
Yeah. So this was raising some of the eyebrows and, secondary roads, there's a white truck shed. It's down for 124 and replacement's 415. That's about an inch down from the top. So
Now,
those are things we just need to look at.
all these buildings, when were these replacement costs put on? Were they just
It was
recently?
just this
Yeah, just
summer,
this
wasn't it?
spring, this summer, we had the guy
Yeah.
come around and tour everything.
Okay, so they weren't that far out of line 2 years ago. But what they are,
I don't know, the courthouse was, for example,
Yeah,
I think we had 6 on
we
it,
upped that before they even went around.
and we went to 8, and the value on it is almost 11.
yeah, but like this building here, we could have never built,
This one,
no.
oh, next door,
Yeah,
in transportation.
we could have never built that.
Well,
For what?
for the value,
Yeah,
yeah, well, I had that here, I don't know where it's at for sure.
You wanna see the Valley Ranch is on here too?
Yes, yeah,
45.
number 45, okay. Yeah, so we have it at 450, but the replacement cost is about 665,000. And we know that we could never rebuild that,
So
So,
what's the deal with Gallagher? Are they no longer then?
and that's the other thing I was going
She
to,
did call yesterday and I didn't catch
Okay.
all of that on there.
there's a breach of contract, is basically the way to put it.
Okay.
And so, we canceled our agreement with Arthur J. Gallagher, I think is how it is, full name, and we're with Holmes Harvey. And Gallagher's was not doing any loss control, which was half of the agreement. And so, what do you do if you have a loss?
We've been with them for a long time.
We have been, yeah, and they've had a couple of oops here the last, couple decades, I should put it. Remember I reported about, the overall liability?
Mhm.
So, where it was collective and not individual counties,
Yeah,
so, yeah. So the decision was to move away from them. And they did refund $40,000 for fees collected for services not rendered
To the pool itself.
to the pool. Yeah. And Holmes Murphy is under the administrative portion of the agreement. They are not charging us anything until next year. They're going to finish out the year under administrative free of charge, which is pretty good. So, yeah. So that's pretty well reports. Thank you for letting me squeeze it in early.
No problem. Yeah, Mark, 9:15.
Mine. Thank you. It helps to look it over.
I know, I got one, but that's right. We have a public hearing this morning for a land use change request that was been submitted by Shawnee Lines of 6785 24th Avenue, Van Horn. Is Shawnee there and Mother Pamela? Do you know the board?
I know Gary.
Rick Brimmer, Gary Beershank, Tracy Seaman.
Oh,
our
I know
county
Gary.
auditor.
Oh, I didn't see your name, Gary.
Maybe Rick. Shawnee is proposing to create a new non-agricultural use on property owned by Pamela. Pamela's at the same address there, 6785 24th Avenue. The specific intended use is to start a dog grooming salon on the parcel, and she wants to do that in an existing structure that's on the land. The parcel is located in the southeast quarter, section 32 of Eden Township. We have a copy of the map and the plat map there to show you where that is. It's on the west side of 218, just above 68th Street, south of Benton. For those of you who've been around a while, that was the Robert Struck property for years. If you look at the aerial, there's a small building located where the parcel number is located on that aerial. That's the building that she wishes to have the dog grooming salon within. That land, you can see by looking at the aerial where that building sits, not in production, hasn't been, it's part of the original farmstead. There's no ag land proposed to be taken out of production with this project. So therefore, I've decided the CSR on this matter is irrelevant. The business can utilize the existing well for its water needs. As far as the wash water that would be generated within the facility, we've proposed to handle that with a septic tank that will be used as a holding tank only. And the reasoning for that is that with this type of a use, and this has happened with experience over the years, not great experience, this type of a use does not lend itself well with a conventional septic system because of the pet hair that can be generated in that wash water. Basically, it causes a plugging factor. The second reason for utilizing a holding tank only is that the soils on the south side of this building there tend to be hydric soils. There's wetness there that does not lend itself well to a conventional septic system. So we're looking at the use being with a holding tank. When it's full, it's pumped and then taken to sanitary facilities here in Benton. The driveway for the acreage exists. There's no changes that are proposed whatsoever for that driveway. That driveway is in good shape. Predominant land uses of the area are cropland. There is a hog confinement just to the north on the east side of the road of this particular project, and approximately a half mile to the east, we have a non-ag use there, a printing business that exists, like I said, approximately a half mile to the east of this site. We set out 3 adjacent property owner notices, and of course we also notified the newspapers or our legal newspapers. And that all produced no responses whatsoever prior to today's hearing. This use doesn't present any interference with any farm operations that we can see, doesn't take any good land out of production, so therefore I don't think that there's any problem with it fitting with our agricultural land preservation and use plan. Shawnee, is there anything you'd like to mention that I've left out?
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay, Mother?
No.
Okay. That's all I have.
I don't have any questions. I'd make a motion that we go ahead and approve this.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, yes, that.
Pardon me? Yeah, he'll contact us and we'll do that.
We got a few minutes again to get any more reports.
Just one more comment.
With the workforce development, they're looking for, well, they have quarterly meetings and they need a place to meet, especially in February. And they travel around different counties, so, I told her perhaps get a hold of Haley, her department, and see. I'm not sure where the calendar is anymore for this room.
I don't know, we do online one, so
Okay.
I don't know, I think Jenny used to do a
I
hard copy
know
one.
she used to, but, you know, what that being changed,
Yeah, I don't know if they always call us.
yeah, so I recommend you contact your office. Sorry to throw another item on there, but, you know, one of the girls there in the office can help you, I'm sure. So,
She's going to talk to us for that signature page that we needed, that's on next week, and then they're coming the following week to do it.
Okay. Good. That should very well conclude, Mark.
Okay. I had EasyCon last week. I did not attend it. Okay. I attended by Zoom. It was down in Washington. They showed their new transportation building is done down there in Washington. I didn't see it.
Was that a refurbishing or
Both, an add-on and,
okay?
they did both. But like I said, I didn't go down and see it. They wanted me to, but I did not.
Oh, it's a pretty good drive.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I got in another situation last week, so I didn't have time to drive that far, kill the whole day.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Eastern Iowa House Trust Fund, we did not have a meeting at all because I don't whatever, but anyway, they had some of the applications, maybe you know a little bit, you probably know more than I do, but they withdrew their applications in Benton County. So that's all Tracy said at the meeting, so we did not have a December meeting, November or December meeting.
Yeah.
Won't have none until after the first of the year. And of course, I did not ask who, what for, why, or anything, since we were having a Zoom meeting and.
Sure.
Okay. So, that was about it. Tuesday night, I guess, I met with the police departments here in Benton County, Benton, Urbana, and Plain. And we come to agreement on what they will help the sheriff's office pay for the 911 dispatch area. So it will be coming to the board here for our blessing. It's
And
somewhere to start.
That was Benton, Urbana, and Belle Plaine.
And,
It's just those that have their own resource.
Yeah, just the three, they got their own, yeah. See, all the other towns we contract with,
Right.
they pay, these three do not.
Right.
But yeah, all their 911 calls for the sheriff's department. So I'll get into it later. We don't want to come to the sheriff. We got it ironed out.
Because that was about a year ago, we had a meeting at the sheriff's office, if you recall.
It did not go good.
Well, it was kind of too late in the budget process.
Yeah.
So it's good that it's before the upcoming budgets. They can plan on that.
Correct. Well, I guess I'll touch just a little bit before Myron gets here. I went down and I sat for a half hour at the Marstown corner and watched the traffic last night, so we'll discuss that a little bit more when Myron comes, the lighting situation.
Manage to drive right by.
No, I didn't. The light helps.
So it is up. There's no-
It's up and it is functional.
Only time I've been through there is during the day.
I wanted to do, like I said, do it at night.
Right.
And then I wanted to do it the busiest time. I sat there, like I said, for a half hour, and I sat out in the field. I drove out and down the field and watched it from out there, right up by the intersection. The biggest thing that I seen that I don't like, and there's no way we're gonna solve that, not our problem right now, but somebody that's sitting there gonna turn, that's westbound, gonna turn down the Blairstown corner, and there's oncoming traffic coming on. I counted one semi and a couple pickups and the rest for cars. Went in the, I call it the medium, that's forward for the ongoing.
Right.
When the 4-lane gets done, and passed them at 50, 60 mile an hour. Not smart.
Better than rear-ending at 50 or 60 mile an hour.
True,
I know. And I'll be going over to Urbana and checking that out.
but with the truck,
I'm sure I won't have to wait long to see one go through. So, and I don't know what can be done about it. That's just, wow. And they're what, about 3 months behind over there, aren't
I believe so,
they?
at least 2.
Is that controlled out of Cedar Rapids or Urbana?
Manchester,
Manchester.
that one was Manchester.
It needs to be fixed.
It's brand new.
I don't
It's
care
2
if
days
brand
old.
new. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that need fixed, and I don't know what we can do about it.
Okay, Mark.
Next item on your agenda is to hear and discuss a variance request from Kim Doolin. Kim Doolin is here, right, to Haley's right there. Kim, do you know all the board? You know Rick Gary and Tracy Seaman. Of course, Haley's our county auditor. This request here, I think, requires a little bit of explanation from me to give you a little background so that you can understand what it's all about, and because there's a little history associated with this, and the reason why the variance is even being requested at this point. I've given you 3 documents that show basically where the property is in general. We're just on the east edge of Benton. The other aerial shows basically Kim's property here, I have marked in red an existing acreage, and I've marked in green an existing acreage. Kim came to you this summer and asked for a farm exemption in order to be able to build a new home. On this aerial right here, this is outlined in yellow. That's his farm ground. And basically the new home is being built approximately right here. He was granted that farm exemption from you here in July. So the new home is going approximately here. Since that happened, he has put forth a request by way of his engineer, which is Brain Engineering, to split off. Originally the request was for 5 acres on the very west end of this parcel. He had a total of 42.5 there when we started. Okay, so that's all well and good. This house is under construction, but when this proposal came to me by way of his engineer, I said that in order for this to be able to happen, this would require a variance to the subdivision ordinance granted by the Board of Supervisors. So the reason why I said that it would require a variance and a subdivision plat too, by the way, which I forgot to mention to you, it does require a subdivision plat. Because back in the day here, several years ago, the Doolins, and by the way, Matt Doolin is here as well. The Doolin's father and mother started building out some property to the boys for estate planning and basically settling the estate. And in that process, where the acreage that's outlined in red exists, that was split out, and that acreage sits basically right on the 40 line. So that split is in the 40 over there where Matt owns, and it also is in the area that Kim owns. So that split happened. That was all well and good. But since, in 2016, the area that's highlighted in green was a lot that Kim sold to some folks to build a new home on. That happened in 2016. That split counted. So basically we had 2 parcels. So the reason why I called for the subdivision, if this is going to happen here, is that there would be 3 or more parcels in this 40-acre tract, definition of a subdivision. And of course, as you guys know, some of the provisions of our subdivision ordinance say that a subdivision has to be on a hard surface road. You have to prepare a preliminary plat, and some other things that need to happen in order for that subdivision to be approved. That all was communicated in September. In November, Kim brought documents prepared by Brain Engineering that would be for the subdivision itself. All of the documents that you normally would approve for the subdivision. And I had to, in our office, other staff members have spoken to Kim about this. You'd have to grant a variance before we could approve and create any resolution accepting that as a subdivision in Benton County. So that brings you up to speed where we're at right now. He's asking for a variance. Brain Engineering prepared 3 documents: variance to the hard surface road requirement, variance to the open space requirement, and variance for preparing the preliminary plat. Now, the thing that's different here, and why I wanted to explain it a little bit, is that normally when you're being asked for a variance, and in no way, shape, or form have any malice towards Kim or anybody else that is involved in this project, I just want to explain to you that this request is different. It's different in respect to the fact that we've already got a lot out there that basically was given exemption, so to speak, the one that Kim sold in 2016. This variance now is asking for another buildable lot to build on without having to do some of the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, primarily the hard surface road requirement. So that in itself is different. Typically when you've granted variances, you've done it for somebody to build a new home on the parcel. Usually there were some extenuating circumstances for asking for that variance. And those circumstances typically are is that maybe it's a family member that wants to build on that parcel. One that we just did down north of Blairstown would be a good example of that. Another reason for giving a variance might be because of estate planning. which we just recently did here a couple of weekends ago too. There was no building proposed to happen on any of those. They were just splitting it up to be able to convey to other family members to settle the estate. So the comment that I made early on to Brain Engineering is that, and there's one other thing involved here, is that originally when it was proposed to me, Kim wanted to have the building site for which he got the farm exemption surveyed out, and that happens fairly frequently. A lot of times people doing construction loans want that parcel to be separate from the rest of the farmland. They were thinking about separating the building site that he's building his home on as well as this additional lot. And I made the comment to Mr. Brain at that time that I could see supporting letting him split that out because of the fact it might be for construction loan purposes, that type of thing. But as the administrator of this ordinance, due to the fact we've never done this before, I couldn't necessarily support advocating to you to allow the other variance because of the fact we're creating another building lot here. And in respect to all of that, I issued that opinion, but they went ahead and platted all of this, and that's where we're at now. But I had told him before anything else could happen, he has to come to you. And so from that standpoint, that's what we're doing. But I can't grant a variance, that is only up to you. But I was not advocating for there to be another lot here without it being on a hard surface road. So I just wanted you to know that. The decisions basically are yours. Now the other factor involved here, since this all came up, apparently Matt saw that there was a surveyor out there, and he and his brother contacted me about what's going on. And I told them what was going on, and apparently they have some problems with this happening, and I told them that I would rather that they communicate that to you rather than me communicate coming through me, that they have some issues. Matt is here, and in fairness to the other brother, Mark, if I can find where I put it, here we go. Mark, who lives in the house there in the acreage that's highlighted in red, basically has furnished a letter that he would like for me to read to you. It says, "Dear Mark, I apologize for not being able to attend the meeting. I would have attended if not for a previously scheduled appointment. First of all, I want to say I have nothing to gain or lose financially." He writes from the land use change as for granting a variance. "It was Marion R. Doolin, my father's intention, to keep the family farm open for the use and enjoyment of the Doolin family. I have a couple of concerns with the installment of a driveway and the selling of property that is adjacent to my property without the establishment of proper boundaries. The three of us had made a verbal agreement that if any land were to be sold, it would be sold to a member of the Doolin family, and the property was not to be sold for the purpose of constructing housing developments. It was also my understanding that there was a verbal agreement that my mother, Ruth A. Doolin, would receive all profits from the corn and bean crops harvested from the family's farmland until her passing. Additionally, it was known that any time the installment of a driveway or sale of any farmland would impact her income from the harvesting of corn and bean crops, she would lose income. There is also pasture land that the person farming my mother's field is losing out on. My mother has already lost some income due to the driveway that was installed. My father's intentions were that the farm be fully available for use by the Doolin family for hunting, fishing, camping, and etc. I am not a hunter, but the rest of my family enjoys it, and I can see the importance of it for the management of wildlife population, even though I do not do it myself. Since some of the land is pending sale, and there is speculation that more lots are being sold, I do not think that it will stop here. Family means more to me than financial gain, and I would like to follow my father's wishes on keeping the farmland in the Doolin family's name, as I believe in the statement that no more, take no more than you need. In closing, I hope that you take my statement in consideration, and thank you for your time. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact me. I've provided my phone number and email address below. Now, one of the things that I failed to mention to you in respect to the variance request is the reason given for asking for the variances from the various provisions of the ordinances is to defray the costs associated with the construction of Kim's new home. And reading that just tripped my memory that heretofore, in years past, for 20 plus years of dealing with subdivision ordinances in our county, we've never granted a variance for financial consideration. It was always for the types of things that I mentioned to you as far as estate planning. It wasn't necessarily so that someone could gain income or make their life simpler because of that. But on the other hand, having said that, again, that's up to you guys for your consideration. Now, Matt is here. Matt, is there something that you want to say?
This area was given to us. We are for our family to utilize. I am a very advocate of that area out there to keep it pristine, the way it looks out there. You guys seen that less than 2 years ago when we had the wood chips up there. And the beauty of that area, if it goes from one house of a subdivision, there's just going to be multiples. I don't want to drive through that. I see that in town. The campers that come out through the area there, they walk down the road. They love to see the peace and quiet of the road out there. You see the animals walking across. If it becomes a subdivision out there, we're not going to be able to see that. My feeling is I am going to honor my father. I'm going to honor my agreement that was made to protect this land, keep it in our family, keep it for our family's use. So I just hope that everybody sees that. You see the passion that I've had for this area out here, and I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to honor my word of keeping my agreement that I've had with my two brothers on this. So that's what I'm. So,
Kim?
thank you very much.
Kim?
I agree with the steam part of Matt's all along with that. As far as Mom losing any money from the crop, she's not losing any money from the crop. I don't know where that comes from. This is totally off on timber, pasture, creek bottom ground.
It can't be farmed.
Yeah, it's side hill and creek bottom, flood area.
There's no plans for a subdivision, excuse me here, he gets too nervous with his Parkinson's. There's no plan for a subdivision. Tanner came to us being a wildlife advocate who has lived and hunted and enjoyed the environment as it sits. He came to us wanting to buy floodplain. You can't plant anything there. There's nothing that grows there. It's full of everybody's garbage that they dump off the side of the road. That's the only house that will be built there besides ours. There will never be another house. It will never take the land away from the fields that are being planted as they are right now. Steen has sold his part of the farming. It's now just to one of his sons, and they've backed down on some of their stuff, but they're still gonna plant in those acres that were already provided by the Dewars. And as far as any agreement that was made, Ruth A. Doolin will tell you to your face, if she was here, but she's in the hospital, there was no agreement that it kept in the Doolin family. Speaking of which, we are not allowed to go on the Doolin property, so there's where it's at. We've got a contract for a place to camp that we're not allowed to use. So there rises a problem.
And the original lines aren't where we agreed they were gonna be. The lines got changed to start from day one. We had this problem. I can show you right on it. Matt said he straightened out the line. His dad always wanted that way.
Yeah.
That wasn't how it was supposed to be. I was supposed to come off the Mark property down to the river. Well, all of a sudden, we're 85 foot down the hill and shooting down the creek. It's not just because of this.
The
There's
traffic out there is horrendous
Yeah.
with the campers up and down the roads, up and down the roads. So if we're taking some pristine away from it, I don't know what it would be, man. I'm sorry.
Stony Arch has always been a dump area for people with deer carcasses, pumpkins, whatever. You drive out there right now, there's boxes and all kinds of stuff. That's not pristine to me, that's a dump station.
This is just
Some
a dump
people
station.
like Tanner out there with his wife and stuff, say, hey, take that guy to town with the dump, you never dishes. We don't want it out there.
This has become a family issue, and that's all it is. And it started back in April of this year. And you've not talked to us since. It's all about this property.
We didn't ask Tanner or put it up for sale. He came to us. I didn't go looking for somebody to buy. But after we started putting the sewer in and the well in, the electric in and stuff, the cost went sky high. And with my Parkinson's, I tried to go back to work at school. I did it for a month. I couldn't take it. But here I sit with $90,000 in the ground already. That I can't get nothing out of
And
it.
I just like for you to take into consideration that we are not developing that for any
No,
profit
no.
of any type.
And as far as selling off, Dad sold off sections of the farm. It was not all kept together. It's been sold to Steve Brewer 2 different times, that's back 30 and a lane, and then added another lane on later. And it's 63 acres across the railroad tracks where the dog pound is, to their own merchant. Dad wasn't not to keep every bit of it that I've heard.
Just to summarize though, the issue, and I frankly was reluctant to even hear the family issue, but that's why I wanted to spoken to you, because I know there is an issue, but the bottom line issue as far as the county's concerned is that this is subject to the subdivision ordinance provisions of which I have to enforce, and that's why I wanted you to know what the situation there is. It's just this 40-acre tract where the extra lot is being proposed, and it goes against what is in the ordinance, frankly, unless a variance is granted. And I just wanted you to know the history of, which I think you already do know, but the history of what has occurred with variances in general and giving it. But it does go against the spirit of the ordinance, because if we ended up with multiple lots, which there is in this 40-acre tract, then it was to be on a hard surface road. That's the bottom line.
On the split 3 times. That's where the hard.
If you create 3 or more divisions, any of which are less than 40 acres, that's the definition
How
of
many
subdivision.
divisions does Matt have at his?
He did a subdivision plat some years ago for which the board
Well, I
of
didn't have that on
supervisors
Blacktop
approved.
Road.
Yeah, I don't think it was revolving though, was it? It wasn't.
Well, he's built two things on now.
And I don't remember, this has been a lot of years ago.
Right,
and
I understand that.
I haven't traced it all back, but I'm just faced with what we're looking at right at this point in time.
If I can interject on that, I went for the subdivision. Part of that tract was split off from Art for his septic area and going up along the property line. And I could have kept mine and built a house on that whole section, but I chose to go with the subdivision part, which was approved. I had the plat all drawn out. So if I needed to, I would be able to finance and not have to finance the whole section of the farm. So that's why there's a subdivision there for the variance and that, so.
It was basically the same thing that I explained earlier, the construction loan situation.
That's correct.
Which he was granted a variance and the board approved the plat, so.
I have no intentions of selling anything else. At the time, I had no intentions when it ever came to it.
And that's okay, Ken, it's just that, this is what we're faced with at this point, due to the fact that you guys would like to do it. It requires a variance. And then the question becomes, should it have it? So that's.
I can just say one thing from when I came and started talking to him about purchasing, having the chance to purchase this property from him. He was very adamant that he was kind of nervous about even talking about wanting to sell it to me, because it was evident that he wanted to keep the land out there, not developed. He wanted to make sure that I was gonna be somebody who would take care of it, who would keep track of it, clean it up, and just make sure that it stayed in good condition. And that was, my wife and I both commented on that we've had multiple conversations with him. We've been out there a dozen times with him walking around. It was just something that he made very clear that he wanted privacy out there, and he wanted somebody that, was gonna take care of it and use it for what they've used it for many years. So, he made it clear that there wasn't gonna be a subdivision, that there wasn't gonna be any other houses being built out there.
This map here, this is about where he's building the new house.
Yes. That you're looking at there, Tracy, is a copy of the plat that was prepared that they wanted to
for. And then on that same map, parcel B, that was sold in 2016, you said?
Yes, sir.
Who sold it? Kim did?
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, any opinions?
Probably all the wrong ones, but, Matt and Kim, and Mark, who's not here, I know all three of the boys and knew their father, know their mother. I guess what I would say is the land that we're talking about was gifted or however means belongs to Kim. And his to do with as he chooses, basically. Your agreement is very admirable and honorable that all the income from the crops goes to help support your mother. And I think that's wonderful. But the bottom line is it's his property. Mm-hmm. And our portion in this comes to whether or not we're going to allow a third parcel and skirt the subdivision portions. I'm very familiar with that area. Used to go out to Stony Arch and play as a kid. So, very familiar with it. And, and from what I can see on both map and drawing, is it is going to basically include this timbered area, which is not farmable, not without great expense. Mm-hmm. And so I personally have no problem with it. Is. Others may not care for it, but it is.
May I say something in respect to that?
Of course.
The only thing that I would interject at this point is that with it being against the ordinance the way it is, it sets a precedent that could be deleterious to Benton County in the future. And that I just always caution, and I know Haley and I have her office, our office, we work really hard to try to be consistent over the years about what we do, right, wrong, or indifferent. We try to be consistent and establishing a precedent that could be dangerous as far as the future. Maybe then I want to ask you then, well, I want to do this 3 times, and I'd like to have the variance to our surface road requirement, and then maybe the next guy sees I got 3, and then the next one wants 4, and then where does it stop? As far as enforcing the regulations, can make it more difficult if we don't try to be consistent.
And I think
That's
we
all
all
I
know
will
where I
say.
sit
Again,
with,
I know these people, I know the type of land you're talking about, it's just that, this becomes down to an issue, and I've been tempted to say it a few times in the past here, this past summer, with some land use issues. If we don't like our ordinances, we should change them. We shouldn't just always bury it or try to do something else. If we don't like them, we should change them. In this instance, we have an ordinance, and we need to try to be consistent about what we do with it. That's the end of my speech.
every one of us knows that I have brought this up in the past to be looked at,
You have,
and that I don't like the ordinance.
I know.
And so that's kind of my come from. I think it blocks too much needed progress for our county. And if we don't do something, at some point, we're gonna tax the citizens to death. I'm off my stool now, off the tree stump.
Gary, you got anything to say?
I understand it all. I'm a little, disappointed we don't have more blacktop roads. That's the main sticker here, is not having a blacktop road. I understand that this area is a lot different than like over by Keystone or someplace where it's all ag land.
Another thing about the process is this is within 2 miles of the city of Benton. The city of Benton will need to also approve of any platting that occurs here. I realize it's beyond their services, but they do have the right of review as far as subdivision, so that would require them to approve it. The other thing is that in order for, if this is successful, the deal is consummated, a land use change would have to happen too before, I'd recommend that happen before this plat were ever accepted by the board of supervisors. There's been no land use done either, so.
But it should be pointed out that the Elwicks have, on the other side of the track, much of that area already platted out
That's true.
for development.
That's true. I'm not saying there isn't a problem, I'm just saying that that is a step that has to be taken for it to be approved, is that right of review.
So is there city water and sewer out here?
No. There's 2 new homes that have been built in the last few years on the north side of the road west of this that are on septic system. They're on city water, but both of them have septic system. And then there's a newer house on the south side of the road that has, well, two houses that have septic systems. There's a force main out with the part that you talk about that's been platted. That is in the city, it was annexed. And there's a force main that goes up that hill back up towards the cemetery, and that's not happening. And so there's the house where Kim sold the lot, Brett and Donette Richards, that is septic system, and then they have a sample. And Kim has septic system as well. This would require septic system as well, if it happened. Gotta make it bad, it's just the way it is, to answer your question.
This lot wants 6 acres, 6 acres. Is that under pasture ground right now? You cattle it? Put
There
cattle on
have
it?
been animals on it for years,
It's timber.
So no,
mushroom picking,
okay, no pasture at all.
no, not to speak of, there's a little chunk of flat there, but
when we considered the farm exemption, it was included in the acres that we had total, which was 42.5, if I memory tells me. But whether it's being used or not at this point, I do not know that, but it was included in the overall acreage that was presented to you.
And even with that out, it would still qualify.
Still has 21 or more acres used in commercial production of farm product.
Well, I'll get off dead center. I make the motion that we approve it.
We have a second?
Yep, you do.
Okay, call for a vote.
Aye.
Rear aye.
Seaman, no.
Hopefully brothers can get along.
We tried.
Good family, very good family.
Thank you.
I think we're ready for mine, aren't we?
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen, for listening for our.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate
Really
your
appreciate it, so.
and your brother's letter as well.
I will,
And I really, really am pleased, we're honored that you guys are looking after your mother.
looking after the whole family. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you all. Use your time.
So, one way or the other, you guys can decide which way you want to do it. And goes to the board for approval of the plan. But then also, you're gonna need to do land use changes. And maybe you want to know we're gonna have land use change before all of that is done. Okay. I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Mark.
I will, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Okay, Myron.
Sorry, Myla.
That's okay. 55th Street, South Mount Auburn, bridge replacement project. Alliant Energy has overhead power on that mile that runs from the west all the way to Henry's. Looks like a little bit of a dated overhead line I noticed when I was out there a few months ago. With regard to the project, that the poles look like they're checking and have some age to them. Long story short, the poles would need to be moved to some degree for that bridge replacement project. Alliant Energy is proposing to go underground in that 3/4 to a mile there instead of overhead. Alliant Energy would just like to run it through as a utility permit. I mean, it's the line that's still, existing power is not changing anything that way, but with some of their organizations, instead of just doing a working the right of way permit, they just do the utility permit. So I have no problem with this, but our utility permits go before the board, so if I have approval from the board, chairman's signature, I will then forward it back to Alliant.
Make a motion that we approve that utility permit for Alliant Energy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anywhere?
Just take it there and sign it in there. Item number 2, Tracy, you put on the agenda.
Yes, sir. I went down there and sat out in the field there, John's field, last night, watched the traffic for half hour from 5:30 to 6. The lighting isn't bad, but my question is, you suppose we could ask REC to pull that pole that they left abandoned on the north side of the road and put it on the west side of the Blairstown Blacktop, so there's 2 lights like this.
westbound lane coming on 30, and then to make your left turn to go down the blacktop. That is lit pretty good, not bad. I'm happy with that. But if you're coming eastbound on 30, to make your right-hand turn, that ain't lit so well. I was wondering if we could put another pole on the west side of Blairstown Road. It'd be something what REC could say, yeah, we can do it, or no, we can't. I don't want to, I understand that when the highway gets done, we're gonna get better lighting. We'll work on that when it's done.
So would this be in the county or state right away?
State right away. State right away.
The pole that's currently lighting the intersection, identifying the intersection is in state right away. So what kind of hoops do we jump through to get that?
Technically, probably that destination light, as the DOT would call it, the light that that REC put in the southeast corner, probably should have gotten a permit from the DOT prior to installing it. The DOT's, I said the other week or not, but in the past conversations I've had with the DOT is that the DOT allows two types of lighting at intersections. One single light that identifies it, it's called a destination light, or full-fledged intersection lighting, and the DOT needs to evaluate those intersections to determine if that's warranted, and then the government entity can pursue intersection light. If it's state on state highways, the DOTs can take the lead on that. If it's a county or a city street that intersects the state highway, it's going to be that entity that's going to have to proceed with that request. I have made that unofficial request yesterday in an email to the DOT, asking also if there's anything they could do temporary on this intersection to help out. I suggested maybe a destination sign in advance of the intersection. And, I say that because with some of the DOT projects going on this year, the county routes or the DOT routes are noted on the sign, but sometimes people are just oriented with a town, If you were to ask people what the county road is that runs north and south out of Blairstown, how many could answer that question? But they would tell you the Blairstown Road takes you to Blairstown.
Right.
So could a destination sign, whether it's an orange sign that says Blairstown to the south, with an arrow type of deal, or whether it's your standard green Blairstown sign, could that temporarily be installed in advance of that intersection? That would help, for the time being. But I don't know if a formal request was made to the DOT whether allowing a light on the west side of the intersection would be granted or not, even though it would be temporary. I also asked the question if the project had to be complete before they can evaluate whether that intersection would be warranted for intersection lighting, or whether the county could pursue that. The county would be interested in that, and noted that we had done that years ago on the light.
So he has evidently contacted DOT to see about doing something, whether it's lighting or a sign, or both, obviously.
I'm a little foggy on this. Who's paying for, excuse me, who's paying for what? After the intersection's done, the state puts up the lights and we pay for them?
No, the state would tell the county yay or nay as to whether a full-fledged intersection lighting scheme could be constructed. Or no, you could put up a single destination light just to highlight the intersection like other intersections are throughout the county. But then the county would have to put a project together if granted for intersection lighting, let it through the monthly DOT letting, and then if the funding that I'm thinking of that was used at Watkins, you would get reimbursed for 55% of the project cost. The county would pay for the project and would pay for the power to operate the lights moving forward.
Even though they're on DOT property.
Correct. DOT policy is when a city or county road intersects the state highway, it's going to be the city or county's responsibility, responsibility to do allowed things at that intersection, but the DOT is going to grant what's allowed.
I think you told us this last time. Yeah. So, yeah, it's our expense. Temporary would be our expense, you know, but if it avoids an accident, I think it would be warranted. It doesn't stop people from passing on the wrong side. So once they get back to you, would you ask them about a temporary light or an additional temporary light, as well as, well, okay, if they, or signage, or both, or however? Yeah. Gotta ask Captain, may I?
I've been through that intersection a couple times myself here since last week, and I can't even recall right now how REC ran power to that light. Did they run it overhead from
The pole that they acquired the electricity from is way over on Don Pecker's property, next to his property. And then they ran it from, because it's went underground. This is the line that goes east and west. And they bored underneath the ground to go underneath the Blairstown Blacktop, and then they popped up on the west side of the Blairstown Blacktop, goes back up the pole, and then it still runs aerial. So through the intersection, there is no lines or nothing. So they hook way back there where they come down the pole, they put one of them mini,
Junction boxes?
no, transformer. They put one of them mini transformers in there. That's where they pull the light. Well, then they go from that pole over to the steel I-beam of the main high line that runs there. And then they go from there to the new pole. I mean, they use triplex, which is nothing wrong with that, because it's been spliced 3 different places. You can see it. You know, that's fine. That's no problem. But they had to pull juice from a long ways, you know what I mean, to get the light there. And that's why I thought if they could put another light on the west side of the road, they could go from that light that they got right now and run an aerial, as long as they put in a 30-foot pole to hook that light up. They wouldn't have to come back from the west where it comes back up and put another mini transformer in there on that pole and come that way. But, you know, there again, I'm no lineman.
I know REC has a line that they have underneath that, on that transmission pole under ITC. So I couldn't remember where all the poles were located and how they ended up, because that's on the west side of the Largetown Road, and the light that currently functions on the east side. I couldn't remember how they ended up taking it over there.
Correct. Like I said, I sat there for a half hour watching. I was trying to think of like them floodlights they got where they got transfer from the 4-lane to 2-lane. I mean, that is well lit up. But the lights that it got shining, I call it cross lights.
they're shining this way and you're driving the center. So the lights don't affect you when you're driving on the highway, because they're shining across. You go to that intersection, no matter how you put one of them lights up there, it would affect, driving. Whether you shine to the south, somebody coming north, or if you shine it to the west, people on 30 coming east. I mean, it's a lose-lose proposition on one of them big floodlights, that kind of a spotlight that they got. So they'd be better off, if they could, put another pole with the arm coming out and shining there on the west side. To me, it's no big deal, but I mean, this is the DOT again, so. The light that's there now does identify the intersection. It doesn't necessarily light up the intersection anyway, but it does. It's more or less a T intersection, so to speak, at this point.
Right.
It would be just like north of Watkins, both of those T intersections, there's a light there. And numerous other intersections. But,
Well, like I said, I sat there from 5:30 till 6 last night. Nobody overshot it. I mean, everybody that was living in the Blairstown area, they knew where to turn. So, I felt good about that.
And it just takes a lot of getting used to, obviously, but he's already got a request in, so not much more we can do at this point in time until we hear back.
Okay, well, keep us informed on that.
I will. Like I say, I think the biggest question I didn't know and asking, outside of what has just come up today was, in the past when I dealt with this funding, it was well after the highway had been built.
Right,
And,
yeah, see, I'm just gonna put something in there temporary.
Right, but if getting intersection lighting could happen, planning could already start now, so that you could do the installation as quickly, as soon as possible after the opening of the highway.
Right.
Utilizing that time now until then for planning purposes and design, is that a possibility, or do you have to wait until the intersection is completed and open to traffic before the DOT will warrant the need or not? Or
I would suggest we could probably start on that in July or August of next year. Get the ball, after they get that, they're gonna have to move a lot of dirt in there. Once they get that in, then a guy can maybe start thinking about it, but right now.
Well, he's just saying that, get that seed planted, that we want to have a full lighted intersection.
I'm not sure if that funding is, I know it goes on throughout the year utilizing it, but is it a application that has a single due date, or is it just continuously out there? I need to refresh my memory on that, but to my knowledge, that would be the only funding that I'm aware of that is out there that would help the county in that expense. Otherwise, you could ignore that funding altogether and fund it 100% of your own, but I don't believe that there's anything else out there that the DOT is going to, that would offer full or partial funding for life.
If we get partial funding, why not? If we need to put up temporary and they would grant it at county expense, get your done. So.
Right. Well, it wouldn't hurt to send them an email and ask them if we can put a second light up there.
I can do that.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you handle that? They don't like you.
There's a lot of older people, especially, I gotta get up after church. They're struggling with that intersection. I don't know how often they take it, but they're still struggling with it.
Well, that's all I got.
Hope the winter disappears quickly when we get back into longer days and there's less nighttime driving. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah.
I mean, I still understand the aspect that, you know, the landscape, the topography has all changed in that area with that road, and that even during daylight, that intersection looks much different than what many people remember before the project started.
Right. And all that's absolutely true. You know, somebody coming home at 8 o'clock in June, it's no big deal. It's daylight. Somebody coming home at 8 o'clock now, it's dark. But when this intersection's done, and they're not gonna put up as many lights as what they did at 3218. I think there's 20 some lights there, about 20 lights.
They're not gonna put any lights up, Gary.
Nothing.
DOT is not putting any lights up at this intersection with any of their projects. All of the lighting that is being talked about would be all driven by the county after the DOT is done with their project. Or, as I'm saying here a moment ago, whether or not we could get it started that maybe the county's project could be happening near the end of the 4-lane project, and maybe it's, you know, weeks, months before the project is being open to traffic. But the DOT has no light plan for this intersection at all.
So they've widened out the distance between the northbound or the eastbound and the westbound lane at Blairstown intersection there. How wide is that gonna end up being? Is it gonna be wide enough for a semi to park in the middle?
I believe so. I could tell you what that width is without looking at plans. but
Yeah, I can't either, but you gotta remember where old 30 is right now, it's still sitting there. The new 30 is gonna be north of that. Where the shed is, their maintenance, not maintenance shed, their office is right now, that trailer and all that. It's gonna be towards that trailer.
It's gonna be the westbound side.
Yes. Correct.
And
The highway's gonna be wider there, and then once it gets past the Blairstown corner, then it's gonna narrow back down again.
I understand all that, but
kind of like Newhall.
Yeah.
so they're gonna have, the highway's gonna be wider, there's not gonna be any state lights there.
Nope.
So we're gonna have to have lighting for the westbound side and the eastbound side.
You'll probably have to have at least 4 lights there.
I'd say 6 at a minimum.
Probably. I would agree. You
Whether
can't
it
put
can
anything,
take more than 6 because of the turn lanes, I'm not sure.
yeah,
But
because you can't put anything in the mediums,
correct.
you know. I would agree with you. But there again, like I said, that to me, they're gonna have to haul a lot of dirt in there on that north side to build that up.
Right, just like they did on the south.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking at that. Yeah, you could start the plans, but to me, you can't actually get anything down, you know, like here, to beat a woodlast in the ground until the dirt work is done.
True, but on paper you could
Yeah.
start doing some plans.
Yeah, that you could, yes.
And that's what I'm
Okay.
asking about more so.
Okay. Okay.
That's the way I took it.
Yeah, that's,
And now you couldn't bury lines there if you wanted to, because they're gonna tear it up.
Yep.
How are they gonna handle that, it's about this big. It's a fiber optic line on the north side of the highway. Does that go around behind where that station was? It must. I know if I accidentally cut that, all the farm ground I got ain't enough to cover it.
I don't know.
I don't know where it's all located on that project. If it,
Cause they got all
needs to
the,
be moved, it would be moved, and I'm thinking that all of the utility lines have been moved to date for this project. At least I believe so, and that where they're at right now, they would be out of the way. Now, I don't, the westbound lane isn't moving too much to the north, but it is moving a little bit to the north, at least a full lane width, maybe two, I'm not sure. I guess they're probably between 15 and 20 feet, I think, is what that's moving to the north a little bit.
And that's just in that intersection area or all along?
And maybe if the intersection is more than that, I can say all along, it's, approximately going through there at existing, Highway 30, which would be westbound 4-lane. The driving lane would be kind of like the passing lane for the new highway. The new driving lane would be north of the existing driving lane.
Anything else for him?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Myron.
Sure, thanks, Myron.
I believe that's it.
Yeah. Pass it around.
Sent to them. Well, first I'll do like a letter, cover letter, but then you send them that kind of thing. You gotta use that little.
Thank you, Myron. Sure thing.
That's basically it, and then at the bottom of the form.
That looks good to me. You're done.
And then the cover letter, I'll just explain, give them a deadline.
Yeah. Just change it from Franklin County.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, but
Really? Or
there's a few of us brainstorming on our stuff, so.
that'll be all right. I like that.
We adjourn.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.